Welcome to the England Rugby Pod. Thanks for downloading episode 31. Today we take a look at England's forwards. Post-Lions, who still makes the cut? Where will Eddie Jones make changes? And what does the future hold for Dylan Hartley? You're listening to the England Rugby Pod, the rugby podcast that believes England will win the World Cup in 2019. Hey guys, welcome back. Wow, so we've just obviously had a huge tour with the Lions. Just coming down off that now. But of course, it's time to focus on the reason we're here. That's England. That's what the future holds for England. And of course, it's looking forward to the World Cup in 2019. I'm joined as ever by Dan. Hello, mate.
Hi, Andy. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm quite looking forward to getting back into England mode. The Lions has been great. The result probably was great, all things considered. But, it's time to focus back on the Red Rose. And, I'm looking forward to it. And there's a lot to talk about, I think.
Well, now we saw that the Lions roared. Let's see amongst those lions how much of the roses blossomed.
Oh dear! I did see what you did there. I did see what you did there. That's very clever. That's very clever. Okay, well, look, on that note, let's crack straight on. Because look, Eddie Jones has got some massive decisions to make. There's one. So first of all, today we are going to spend this week looking at the entire team, but today we're going to focus on the forwards, one of our speciality areas, I think. He's got some big decisions to make because there are guys who went on tour who performed very well, who aren't necessarily, or certainly before the tour, weren't necessarily the starters. They've gone out there and done well, and I think in most cases, all of them, maybe bar one, involved in test matches. There's some big decisions to be made.
Yeah, I mean, it's vice versa as well. There were some starters who went out there who really might be in trouble.
Yeah, this is true. Well, why don't we start at the front just kind of work our way through? It's probably going to be the best way to look at it. So obviously up front, both of the England number ones, I think we call them. I don't know whether that's loose head or tight head, but that goes to show how much we know about propping. But we're going to just go with 1, 2 and 3. Dan Cole, Kyle Sinclair. In that order, they are the England number one in the 23.
Yeah.
Whilst I don't see anything changing in terms of the pair of them being involved for now, what are your thoughts? Kyle Sinclair obviously played a big part in the test matches. Dan Cole didn't.
I think it's just a little too premature to replace Dan Cole at the moment. Kyle Sinclair is definitely knocking on the door, and he is the one for the future. And I suspect by 2019, assuming things progress as they are, we'll probably hold that shirt. Dan Cole didn't have a great tour, if we're honest. Like for him, for the level of player he is, I thought he might be a test starter. It didn't materialise like that, and rightly so, based upon performances. But from an England perspective, I'd be surprised if it doesn't still start with Dan Cole and Kyle Sinclair as the impact player off the bench, and he does make an impact. He really does.
I was going to say, Eddie Jones is obviously notorious for his finishers rather than his reserves or his bench or whatever else other people want to call it. And to be fair to him, he's done a great job of creating. It's not just a name, like it's a genuine thing. And you're right, Kyle Sinclair is a finisher. Like he brings something to the pitch that normally you wouldn't expect to get from a front row player. Typically you think of front row placements as, the guys who started are just knackered and you need someone else to come on and continue doing the same thing. But you bring Kyle Sinclair on and actually he can create opportunities as well as obviously doing, the jobs that you expect of your props. And it's great right now for him to be that player. But I think it's also quite exciting for the future. And as you say, looking forward to the 2019 World Cup. To have a guy like that who can start the game and possibly finish it, you just don't know. Propping seems to be changing.
Yeah, it really does. Do you know what happened with Kyle Sinclair and that arrest in Auckland? I saw a thing about he'd been arrested, released without charge, but do you know any more detail around that?
I don't actually know. I saw it as well. I haven't managed to find anything that goes into any more detail other than the fact that he made his public apology. It sounds like it was probably just he was a bit drunk and
Yeah.
The Kiwis police were probably a bit pissed off that the Kiwis didn't win and decided, we're going to arrest you. And then the next morning they had to let him go again. But
I'm happy to blame the Kiwis for it.
Why
Yeah,
not?
sure.
Why not?
Let's go with that.
Yeah.
Let's go with that.
If they disagree, they can get in touch.
Yeah.
So, okay, I think, as far as the number one shirt goes, I think you're probably right. They are the two guys. Probably nothing going to change there. That's a position that probably is quite safe and an easy one for Eddie Jones. Just though, briefly, if Kyle Sinclair was to get the nod, Dan Cole's not a finisher.
Agreed. It's a tough one. He's not a finisher, but does every player on the bench have to come on to sort of have that impact? Maybe sometimes you need, especially up front, maybe sometimes you do need somebody who can just come on and steady the ship. Perhaps
Maybe.
if scrums.
Yeah, maybe.
Well.
I think, I look at Dan Cole as the guy who's training Kyle Sinclair to be the number one guy, with a view to probably retiring at that point.
Yeah, where's Ellis Genge? Is he same position, or is he?
Oh my God! Yes, I don't know, because obviously we're going to come on to we'll go straight on to 3 now, and of course it's another one where both of them were on the Lions tour. Mako, who obviously started for the Test side, all 3 matches, all 3 Test games he started, and Joe Marler, who was only involved in midweek games, but nevertheless he is a Lion. And again, I think that nothing changes there, other than perhaps.
Do you?
What you don't?
So I think Mako's overtaken Marler, because Marler was typically starting.
So what I was going to go on to say was, I think Eddie had struggled to work out which way round they actually went. And
okay.
And I think now that's clear.
Yeah. I think Mako's made that his shirt.
Yeah.
And I'd be surprised if I would. Joe Marler, actually, I do rate Joe Marler a lot, but he's got, especially with the young lads coming through, and I'm pretty sure Ellis Genge is there as well. Joe Marler may actually struggle to be in that match day 23.
Yeah,
he's got,
possibly.
Mako starting.
I guess the thing is that you do have a replacement, a whole front row replacement on the bench. So depending on where Ellis Genge sits, and I'm gonna assume that Ellis Genge is getting himself ready to take over from Kyle Sinclair when Kyle Sinclair takes over from Dan Cole. And it all fits in nice and neatly like a little jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah, let's hope so.
It may be wishful thinking, and I perhaps could have cleared this up very easily with a little bit of research, but I didn't do it. I apologise. So, we're guessing, and hopefully we're guessing right.
Mate, that's part of our charm, just being absolute morons about everything front row.
This is true.
Surely.
Okay, look, the big front row question.
This is the big one.
The big one. Okay, we've got Dylan Hartley. We're big fans of Dylan Hartley. He is the England captain and starting hooker. You've then got Jamie George, who has been the finisher and, a great kind of replacement for Dylan Hartley for, about 18 months or so now, who went on the Lions tour and had a stormer.
Jamie George is the best hooker in England.
Without question. But is it time to get rid of Dylan Hartley yet?
It has to be. Like, I do like Dylan Hartley, but it has to be. Jamie George started all 3 Lions tests. He's the best hooker in the British Isles. It's time for him to wear that number 2 shirt and start for England. You have to play your best team. Dylan Hartley, I think, has done a brilliant job. I'm not even saying, okay, I don't think we'll see Dylan Hartley in an England top again. I hate to say it because I do like Dylan Hartley, but I don't think we will. You've got the likes of Luke Cowan-Dickie coming through. I think in hooker we're pretty strong.
Okay, so but who do you have as your captain?
See, I don't know. Possibly. So this is a tough one. I think it's too early for Maro.
I agree, but I think Maro is the next England captain.
He could be, but in which case, do you just have a stand-in captain in the meantime? And the problem with the second row. So, do you know who I'd potentially have as captain? And this will be controversial, bear in mind. Possibly Launchbury. But
I don't think you can. As you say,
to start.
I think the only person in the second row guaranteed to start is Maro.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What's the point in having a captain? In this sort of a situation, who's not guaranteed. I mean, possibly you look back to Chris Robshaw. He's done he did a pretty good job, supporting the young guys on tour in Argentina. I think he was one of the captains out there. Part of me wonders whether Eddie just basically goes to Mara and says, "Look, this is going to happen. It's going to happen soon. Get yourself ready." And in the meantime, Dylan continues to do his thing. Jamie George just continues to sharpen up a little bit more under Dylan Hartley, and with a view to this all changing in 6-12 months.
So I think you've got to pick your best team, then you pick the captain after you've picked your best team.
I agree with you, but Eddie Jones has made it very clear that his plan, and I like it because it's kind of what the Kiwis do. It's not just about a 15. It's not even just about a 23. It's about a wider squad that has so much strength and depth that it really doesn't matter which way round you play people, because your team is, it's just as good with any of the combinations. And that's obviously what he's trying to do long term. So I just wonder whether he looks at it and says, there's plenty of time for Jamie George. Yes, he's done brilliantly well with the Lions, and he will go on to do brilliantly well with England, but he doesn't need to be starting yet.
But is it too soon? Is it too soon for Mara? I mean, he's had 2 full seasons for England.
Yeah.
He's a Lion. He's allegedly about to become the most expensive player in the world, or the best paid player in the world. He's got all that.
Yeah, he's captained England at the junior levels.
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe the time is now. Okay, so one question I do have then, because obviously Eddie has made this, as I mentioned, this big thing about having strength and depth, and how he wants to have, I think, something like three guys in every position. We'll come back to going through the players in a moment, but just before we do, is there a danger of having too much? Having too many options? Is it going to make it difficult to find your best 23? If you're constantly testing, different combinations, and if you've got 43 guys and you can't decide who the best ones are, and I'm not saying that will happen, but do you know what I mean? Like, or because he's talked a lot about how that's what he wants to do. He wants to have this huge squad, and they're all good enough to kind of pop in and out. But how do you then therefore nail down your best 23? Because, it's all well and good keeping everyone on their toes by saying, look, there are people out there who can replace you. But at the same time, you also need to create that kind of bond with your core match day 23. And kind of they need a little bit of sort of reassurance, I think, that they are his guys that he's picked. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean. I completely get it. So we're obviously talking from sort of post-Lions, post-Argentina tour. What I think is going to be, and what makes it quite exciting is we're talking with players who are probably in the running. What I think is going to be picked upon is based upon the first part of the Premiership.
Yeah.
Because I think you have to, like you say, because otherwise, it is tricky. Because although it's great to have options, you do need a bit of that continuity. Yeah. And these guys need to play together.
Yeah, I'm not just talking about him announcing his. His wider squad or anything like that, because these things can all change. I'm thinking more just generally that whole idea of, I think he said, hasn't he wants 3 guys competing for every position on the pitch. And that's great. That's great from a strength and depth point of view. It's great to know that there are options. But you kind of want it, really, you want 1 guy for every position, maybe 1 other guy for every position that's your obvious replacement if needed, and then there's a 3rd guy who can do that job if needed as well, rather than 3 guys who perhaps who can all do the job, because you never really then have that continuity of who do you play, who is your go-to 6, who's your go-to 7, who's your go-to 4, and so on. So yeah, it's an interesting one. I like the idea of a really big squad, and I like the idea of that huge amount of strength and depth, but it just it worries me that you potentially risk getting into a situation where you don't really know what your team is.
So with that in mind, in the second row, the main contenders have to be Marrow, George Cruz, Courtney Laws and Joe Launchbury.
Yeah.
But who are your starting 2 and who are your match day 3?
Well, that's it. I mean, first and foremost, who do you not include? Because that's the key thing, isn't it? Of those
So my
four,
starting two, if I went now, my starting two would be Marrow and Joe Launchbury with Courtney Laws on the bench.
yeah.
George Cruz, I think, is a brilliant player. He just come back from injury, so it's not fair to say he didn't have a great tour. But I think he could do with a bit more time, which that Premiership will probably give him. But at the moment, I probably go with those three. I thought Launchbury was inspired in Argentina. I think Marrow, like we say, is probably the first name in that second row. And I thought Courtney Laws was great as well, and has probably earned it. So I'd go those three initially.
I mean, I don't disagree at all, but I think you're right. It's probably too soon to, and I'm not suggesting you are writing him off, but it's too soon to sort of say that George Cruz didn't perform well enough, and therefore you go with the other three. I think if you're picking your team tomorrow, then fair enough. And if it comes to that, that's probably the route we'll both go down. But there's going to be a big decision to be made there, because you're right. Unless you find an extra finisher somewhere, one of those guys isn't included in the 23. And it's going to be a tough call, because you really want all four of them involved. I mean, it's not the only position that has a lot of depth at the moment. Perhaps the starting three are more straightforward, but in the back row, I mean, Chris Robshaw, James Haskell, Billy Vunipola are probably the go-to three right now. Nathan Hughes is the obvious replacement for Billy, but then you're looking at other players. So beyond that, Josh Beaumont maybe the other number 8.
He's a good player.
So he's probably the other number 8 if you're looking at 3 per position. You've then got, and I'm not sure who's a 6 and who's a 7, but I think one of each is the Curry brothers. Now, obviously, they're the youngsters. Now, whether they actually get the call up just yet, I don't know. Perhaps Eddie will. Based
upon Tom Curry's performance, I said bring him in. Well, I reckon he's ready.
And supposedly Ben's the better brother.
Bring them both in.
Yeah, Sam Underhill was another one who had a great tour down in Argentina. But then you've got the slightly more regulars in Tom Wood.
Yeah.
Tiamana Harrison and Jack Clifford, who personally I'm not sure
I completely forgot about Jack Clifford. Yeah, of course, because he's been injured. It's a good. So Billy, I think, sticks at 8. I think we know that. I would keep Haskell in as well. I think Haskell actually did all right on the lines. I think
so.
I think he's our most underrated player. I think people like to give him a bit of a hard time, but
underrated
actually,
forward. The most underrated player is Jack Null.
Yes, fair enough.
Who will come on to in our next episode.
But yeah, absolutely. Whether Haskell will make 2019, I don't know. But at the moment, I think he earns his spot. So I've probably got Billy in them. And then Rob Shaw, you're getting the honest game out of a guy. You know he's always going to put in that shift.
Yeah, he's a leader. He may not be the captain anymore, but he has experience of doing it. He's a good forwards leader, even if you've got your captain in there too. He's a workhorse. A lot of what he does goes unseen because it happens, at the bottom of the ruck. You need a guy like that.
Yeah, so I want to see the likes of the Curry brothers, Underhill been given their shots, because I think to be ready for 2019 and for us to win the World Cup, then we need to be blooding these guys now. We want them to be going into that competition as not necessarily seasoned, maybe a bit far, but as competent internationals with regards to experience and playing on the big stage.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at a straight up, your first and second choice, for me, Robshaw, Haskell, Vunipola are your 6, 7, 8 or 7, 6, 8, every round they go. But I actually would then go Nathan Hughes as Billy's replacement. But I think I agree with you. I think I'd sneak in both the Curry brothers as the 6 and the 7, because they do play 6 and 7. They don't play on the same side. And I think Tom Wood, Harrison, and Clifford just unfortunately miss out. Beaumont, obviously, he misses out. Sam Underhill probably just misses out. But Tom Wood's probably the big loss there.
Yeah, I don't think it's a big risk, though, doing that. And this is why I think it's worth letting them, because you've got a Toje as well who can step in, even Courtney Laws. Yeah, so I'd like to see that, actually. I'd like to see the young lads being given their shout in the sort of 23 come the autumn internationals. Yeah,
no, I agree with you. I think, there's, as we said at the beginning, there are some big decisions to be made. But it's not a bad problem to have, is it?
No, it's not bad. And do you know what? It's looking good. It is looking positive, and it's going to be really, really interesting to see who does what. Like I said, I think a lot of it's going to come down to Premiership form.
Definitely. And it's never a bad thing to have 9 Lions making up 8 positions in the forwards.
Christ, that's hang on, we had 9 Lions.
Yeah.
In the forwards.
Yeah.
Jesus, did we?
Cole, Sinclair, George, Vunipola, Marler up front. Marrow, Cruz, Laws in the middle, and Haskell at the back.
Wow, awesome. And would have been Billy, but then
would have been Billy. Would have been 10.
Yeah, well, Haskell wouldn't have gone if Billy had, but yeah, it's that's a great position to be in. That's a really good. I said, yeah, that seemed a lot, but no, you're right.
Have you taken it in? Are you okay?
Yeah,
with it now?
I still don't believe you. I've counted it. The maths add up, but there's still a part of me that doesn't believe you. But yeah, no, look, the forwards, we're looking good. We're looking good all round, actually. But that's interesting. It's good to round it up like that. Just get a feeling these are England boys, and there's people we're missing out as well. There's people we've not mentioned. The likes of Mark Wilson in the back row, who had a good tour in Argentina.
Yes. There was one of the props that we both thought was awful, and then all the punditry said he was great.
Well, I'm pretty sure we're right there.
Yeah.
But it's a strong position. I mean, Ellis Genge actually is a prop. He's got to be knocked at the door. He's playing pretty well. Second row, I think actually with those 4 who we mentioned, the Freon and Launchbury, I'd be surprised. I don't think anyone's at the standard of those 4 right now.
No, 100%. But there are, as you say, there are people knocking on the door in all these positions. Nick Isiekwe is meant to be, a big up and comer. We'll see what comes of him over the next sort of season. He'll be one to watch. And of course, there are others. Ellis Genge, as you say, is one to keep an eye on. And we've mentioned quite a few in the back row already. That we're saying Tom and Ben Curry right now. I think probably because it's quite romantic, the thought of having a couple of twins, either side of Big Billy at the back. Both of whom are hard workers who are doing really well. It's quite a nice idea. It hasn't happened since the Underwoods, even though they weren't
it's a nice
twins,
idea.
were they?
And the thought they're going back to their mum and dad's house and putting on matching Transformer pajamas after a test match and going to bed at 9:30.
Exactly.
It would be quite a story. Do you know the back row I want to look out for? So Matt Kvesic has gone to Exeter. And with Exeter obviously playing some really good rugby at the moment, if they carry on, I'm going to be really interested to see how well he does. I really rate him. I think he's a brilliant player. And I think he's got something that perhaps some of our other players don't have. But, I mean, he hasn't made the squad yet.
It'll be really interesting to see.
Sneaky feeling he's going to do well.
It'll be very interesting to see what happens I think it's August, isn't it, that Eddie's announcing his... do they call it the elite player squad? About 43 or 47 or something. So, I mean, it seems kind of pointless to do it because I think about 3 months after that you're supposed to cut it down by about 15 players. But it'll be good to see. It'll be good to see what he ends up with at that point, and just to see if any of these new guys do make the cut. And as we know, Eddie Jones is not afraid to cut players that we assume are pretty safe. So yeah. Lots to watch out for, and as quiet as the summer may be for actual playing of rugby, there's going to be lots to talk about, and we'll obviously continue to do that. I think next up we'll be covering the backs in much the same vein as we've done this today. So we'll probably be back with you on Thursday when we will look at them, and we'll see who we think has made the cut, who's survived the Lions tour, and who perhaps is knocking on the door.
Sounds like a plan.
Great. All right, guys. Catch you then.
Yeah, catch you then. Cheers, guys.
Take care.